So let me just introduce myself. My name is José María Beneito. I am the director of the Royal Institute for European Studies at the University San Pablo CEU in Madrid. We are the co-organizers, together with one of us, of this meeting. I'd like to introduce President of one of us and of the Institute of European Studies, Jaime Mayor Oreja. Welcome to everybody. We're going to have first a very short introductory meeting in which some of the organizations which have been active with this meeting will just give some welcome words. First, it is my turn as Institute of European Studies to say some words, and then I will give the floor immediately to Antoine Renard, who is from the Federation Catholic Family Associations in the EU, Esther Parcagni, who is from the Center for Fundamental Rights, very welcome, Danny Webster, who is from the Evangelical Alliance, thank you very much for being with us today here, Ana Alpino, who is from the European Federation, one of us, the Secretary General. So we are here because we believe in life. We want to protect life. We want to protect the life of the mother, and we want to protect the life of the not yet born. We are in favor of a culture of life. We are not in favor, we oppose the culture of death. And as we know, this is at this very moment such a fundamental discussion throughout Europe. In many of our countries, I can speak from my own country, Spain, where we have a new legislative development in which not only abortion is going to be a right, but also any condition is going to be cancelled. The year for the procedural abortion of the mother is going to be lower, and there's not going to be any information on the mother. There's not going to be any alternative to the protection of life of the yet to born. Just as an example, it started through depenalization. It continued through, becoming it a human right, and now a fundamental right and a part of the Charter of Fundamental Rights. This is an evolution which shows the loss of the sense of dignity of human person, and the sense also very much connected with it of what really a human being means. So we are here in order to reflect upon all these circumstances, upon the arguments which speak for the protection of life and which speak also for the protection of human dignity. And we are going to do that through three roundtables. The first of one is going to look to the fundamental right to life, a pillar in the history of the European project. So we are going to look into what has been, were the roots of the founding fathers and European integration, in which it was very clear the consciousness and the awareness of human dignity and the protection of life. Then a second workshop in which we will talk and discuss the legal principles of the EU and the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Why does the inclusion of abortion violate them? And a third workshop on the political and social consequences for the European Union of the recognition of the abortion as an EU fundamental right. So let me just say very briefly that, of course, the majority of European citizens support life and human dignity, that the Charter of Fundamental Rights applies only in relation to the actions of the institutions. As we know, Article 51 of the Charter. It may not limit or infringe human rights recognized by international law, international treaties, or the European Convention, and it may be not interpreted in such a way as to infringe or destroy a fundamental right. It would mean the inclusion of a fundamental right to abortion at the European level, a violation of the principle of subsidiarity and of the union system of competences. The proposal would require amendment of the treaties, as the Charter, as we all know, is part of the treaties. It would go against the principle of the margin of appreciation established by the European Court of Human Rights. It would violate the UN conventions and the pro-UN principle of the treaties. It could involve an abuse of rights, and it would open the door to EU funding of abortion, which would amount to a misuse of power and an abuse of competence by the European Commission. Well, this is just some of the issues we need to discuss. And again, I welcome you very much. I welcome you very heartily to this meeting. And thank you to all the organizations which are part of this debate. I will give now the floor over to Ana Del Pino from one of us.
Thank you very much, Jose Maria. Well, welcome everyone. As you know, we have simultaneous translation. I will talk in Spanish, so you can use the webinar in order to follow what I'm going to say immediately. You only have to go to the icon of the interpretation and then choose the language. Okay. Excelentísimo señor Don Alfonso Bullón de Mendoza.
Mr. Alfonso Bullón de Mendoza, President of the Catholic Association of Propagandists at San Pablo, Mr. Jaime Mario Yezca, member of One of Us, Mr. Jose Maria Benito, Director of the Royal Institute for European Studies, members of the European Parliament and the Academia, members of the One of Us Federation, and those organizations, civil society organizations that have joined us today. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
To the University San Pablo CEU, concretely to the Royal Institute of European Studies, for your valor, your courage to organize this conference with all the organizations from the civil society for Europe, for our future, and for the dignity of every human being. Todos los europeos.
All European people, from the youngest who are yet unborn in their mother's womb to the eldest, need to be protected. Today, we are going to address the dignity of human lives. And in times like this, I would like to especially remember the victims of the COVID pandemic, the victims of the war on Ukraine, and the victims of the horrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria, not to mention the victims of abortion. The lives of each and every one of them are an irreparable loss. Abortion is in fashion. It is a fad that presides national legislations, as Jose Maria has pointed out, in our countries, where there are endless laws that not only favor but promote abortion. And of course, it is in fashion in European institutions to do that, because insistently and with progressive language, say that abortion that they want to sell us as a right is a voluntary interruption, is feminist, equals to health, is constitutional, is free, is the solution, is a progressive, socialist, modern, and generous. It's a social achievement that is harmless and civilized. It defends women. It's good in itself, and it's even financially profitable. All of these arguments, which are addressed up in political correct language, is just the opposite of what it really is. Hence our being here, to show that those who defend abortion is fake, to denounce that this is misleading. It is known that those who win the battle of language win the wars and ideas. So we need to wage this battle. And today we want to debunk these lies, these errors around abortion, which is at the service of an ideology and not the common good. Because abortion is no interruption. In reality, if we're to be truthful, it's to liquidate, to eliminate, to eradicate, to crush and to grind. But it's not an interruption. It is not voluntary. So far as 75% of women who abort do so under pressure, be it social, family, labor, financial, and so on. Abortion is no right. The unborn has a right to be protected, and children have a right to be adopted, and not their future fathers have a right to adopt. Abortion does not respect the human rights. I'm not making this up. We are not making this up. This is the universal Declaration of Human Rights. All individuals have a right to life, freedom, and their own people, and the European Charter establishes that all individuals have a right to life in Article 2, and Article 1 says the human dignity will be respected and protected. In Brussels, we want to defend these principles. We want to defend this as true elements in the European project. Thank you.
It is not good that man should be alone. This sentence from the Bible explains why we have families, why we have societies, why we have states, and in the end, why we have civilization. It is not acceptable that anyone should feel alone in that world, especially those in need, and especially mothers in need. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Ministers, Member of Parliament, lawyers, philosophers, very, very many thanks for your contribution today to our fight. Not only because you will speak, but because you are actors. What do we have at most in common, all human beings? Life. And along with life, we have individual consciousness, awareness. And through experience, you can see that when you tackle this consciousness of anybody, you can get a good reaction. I would give you some optimism for the afternoon and for the next days. Very recently, in last November, the European Commission, you do not expect that from them, the European Commission, stating about migration, said, the Commission recalls the principle of sincere cooperation and calls on member states to work together to ensure a common response, with the sanctity of life being utmost importance and primary consideration. Can you imagine? So there is a lot of hope. And the reason is, as Pope Francis mentioned, life and family are in the heart of God's project. And God will not give up his project. So will you, so we shall.
Thank you.
Dear distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to be here with you all on behalf of the Center for Fundamental Rights from Budapest, Hungary. It is a well-known aim of the Center to form a counter against today's human rights fundamentalism, which is exactly what we are trying to do with this conference as well. I'm going to start from what might seem a bit far, but I promise I'll keep it as short as possible. Double standards are present in almost every policy area in the EU, but I believe that the unfounded distinction is particularly blatant in the area of attitudes to families and children. While the traditional family model is considered old-fashioned and obsolete, alternative forms of coexistence, for instance, the rainbow family, are put on a pedestal. We are reminded of the Commission's guidelines, which were eventually withdrawn, where it was stressed that the presentation of heterosexual relationships in communication material was not encouraged. While they want to impose on the peoples of Europe the admission of illegal immigrants, as well as their wives and children who come here through family reunification, they do not welcome the birth of European children. As has just happened a year ago in Strasbourg, they are speaking out in favor of women's right to abortion. Violations of sexual and reproductive rights are a violation of human rights and constitute violence against women, said Commissioner Vera Jourova. It is not clear when abortion became a European value. In the context of the debate on sexual and reproductive rights, the Commissioner also said that the reduction of these rights is a setback in the fight for gender equality. So, according to Jourova, the taking of innocent lives leads to gender equality, and if it is not allowed, it's violence. Or will never dreamt of such arrogance. At the beginning of the Strasbourg plenary session, in response to a speech by French President Emmanuel Macron on the need to include the right to abortion in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, Clément Beaune, French Secretary of State for European Affairs, said unequivocally that EU member states should support NGOs promoting women's sexual and reproductive rights. In other words, those that advocate the right for abortion. According to Beaune, an EU member state is acting per the European Convention on Human Rights if it allows access to abortion. However, I have to take issue with that statement. The Convention enshrines the right to life right at the beginning in Article 2. To quote the first paragraph exactly, the law protects the right to life of everyone. No one shall be deprived of his life intentionally, except through the execution of a sentence of a court imposing the death penalty where the law has so provided for the offense. There is not a single word in the document about the right to abortion, but an entire article on the protection of life. This means that they are completely disregarding the existing European laws when suggesting adding abortion as a right. What good are human rights if they eliminate the lives of human beings? Whether it is legal or not in your country, abortion should be seen for what it is. It is a medical procedure that ends the life of a child and sometimes even the life of the mother. It is a shame that the progressive movements, along with many feminists, are calling for abortion to be a women's right when it kills so many women, born and unborn as well. In Hungary, there has been a significant decrease in abortions in the last 10 years. The new constitution, the fundamental law, which came into force in 2012, states that Hungary defends the life of the fetus from the moment of conception. Abortion has been legal in Hungary since the 1950s, up to the 12th week of pregnancy in most cases. Still, in 2021, there were 22,000 abortions, that is 23.7 abortions per 100 live births. Even though the perfect scenario would be 0 abortions, this is the lowest number on record according to the Central Statistical Office's website, which is also a positive achievement. The number of abortions fell by almost half in marriages and by almost 2/3 outside of marriage. The explanation for such a remarkable decrease is the government having introduced pro-family policies. It is important to note that so far the decline in abortions was achieved without a change in abortion regulation for about 30 years. However, in September 2022, there was an amendment to the Hungarian abortion law, which now requires mothers to listen to the baby's heartbeat before obtaining an abortion. We hope that this will help save many innocent lives in the future. I'm looking forward to the discussions this afternoon. It feels great to be among people who speak up for those without a voice. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Esther. Now, Danny Webster from the Evangelical Alliance.
Good afternoon, and thank you. The challenge to the fundamental right to life is as true in the United Kingdom as it is in the European Union. We are seeing many challenges at present, and I want to outline just 3 of those. In the United Kingdom, abortion is available up until the 24th week, one of the widest access to abortion in the whole of Europe, and the vast majority of abortions happen for social or psychological reasons rather than any medical requirements. So the 3 challenges we see at present. The first is that there is increasing access to unsafe abortions, particularly through what's known as telemedicine, so where people can access abortions without seeing a doctor in person. They can over the phone or on the internet, and they can take those at home. This was a temporary provision during COVID, but in 2022 was made permanent. And 1 in 17 women who have a medical abortion experience complications because of that. Secondly, we have seen repeatedly in the last 10 years a push to decriminalize abortion in the United Kingdom. Abortion is allowed as an exemption in the law in the UK, but to decriminalize it would be to take away any protection, any regulation, and there is no guarantee for what guidelines might be put in place in the wake of that. There's nothing that would stop women feeling pressure to have abortions. There is no guarantee that a time limit would not be longer than 24 weeks. And thirdly, we too see the pressure for abortion to be placed as a human right. 2 points on this. First, we have seen advocates for reproductive rights or for access to abortion argue that it is a matter of almost religious freedom that they are able to articulate this, so that would be to criticize people speaking out in favor of life in other countries, because that would be restricting other people's religious freedom. Everything has got turned upside down in that regard. But secondly, we are currently discussing a new Bill of Rights in the United Kingdom. This is likely to come into Parliament this year. And while the government are not proposing to bring in a right to abortion, it is highly likely that one will be introduced by members of Parliament and that will be voted on. I think if the bill goes into Parliament, it is certain someone will put forward this proposal, and we do not know what will happen for that. It is a dangerous situation we are in. Finally, I want to say something about free speech, because in the United Kingdom in the last few months, we have seen increasing restrictions on people's freedom to speak around the issue of abortion. You may have seen cases where people have been arrested for speaking or praying outside abortion clinics. At present, there are a few local restrictions, but a new bill will make that nationwide, so people are restricted from influencing whatever that might mean outside abortion clinics. So that is a significant threat to free speech, not just around abortion, but it is taking powers that you would never normally expect to stop someone from standing silently on a street outside within a particular geographic area. So we're seeing that these human rights are linked, and we think that it's incredibly important that we stand up and we speak up for freedom of speech, for freedom of conscience, for freedom of life, and those are the rights that we should be protecting.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. We were very disciplined with the time allocation that we had. I invite all the panelists to be as disciplined as we were. Thank you for your attention. And now we go into the first workshop, which will be immediately here.